Hey, hello and welcome to the next episode of Two Girls Talk Transits. Today we're going to be reviewing the astrology from January 5th through January 11th, and we're your host. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaleigh.
And while we're here, I do want to go ahead and just mention that since this week is coming out, we are starting a program on January 19th. So we're really excited about that. It's going to be the 6 months learning astrology with both Kaleigh and I. These classes are live online and they're small group sessions. So that they are like live teachings from me and Kaleigh. They will also be recorded. You can keep all the materials, but they are like, sort of like a mentorship kind of thing, leading you through astrology, teaching you all there is to learn about the technical side of astrology. And then Kaleigh will be teaching you all the therapeutic art techniques and how we use astrology ourselves for personal growth and development.
hmm
So it's coming soon. So we definitely would love to have you in there if you are interested. And I'll have the link for our program to sign up to fill out the form in both the show notes and then also on our social pages, Two Girls Talk Transits. But Kaleigh, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you did a great job of summing it up. Yeah, so we are really excited to start it, and we would love like a small community of people that are really interested and ready to learn because I think it really is like super comprehensive and will like equip you with everything you need to know. And I've been through a couple like astrology things myself where it was like self-learning. And I really don't think that there's anything like as nice as like being able to ask somebody like in real time and learning from a teacher in real time. Because astrology can get like pretty confusing pretty fast, especially as like a new learner. So I think it's like really important to have those like mentors there with you, like side by side as you are learning.
Yeah, and within the group program too, like you'll have opportunities to practice on people, which like
hmm
practicing on yourself, you have all this bias, so then you can actually get real-time feedback on if you're learning the program or not, instead of just having to do it all yourself. So that's part of the reason why we designed it this way. But both
hmm
of us have gone through courses, and that's why we're like, we're gonna do it this time. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like me and Maddie have like really learned alongside each other a lot and like have been able to bounce ideas and like grow with each other through astrology. So having like people along with you that are, at the same level as you are is really going to help you grow and expand too.
yes, was definitely something to think about. And if you have any questions, you can also just email us at twogirlstalktransits@gmail and we'll respond and answer any of your questions as well. So definitely look up that. But let's get started for this week. We are looking at on Monday, January 6th,
hmm
Mars will retrograde back into Cancer.
Woohoo, I bet everybody's excited for that.
Right. So
Yeah.
this is a big, this is a revision, a review of a lot of the events that were happening in October. So mostly all of the month of October and a little bit in the very beginning of November.
hmm
And, this with Mars in Cancer is a very different energy than Mars in Leo, which I have felt, and like I'm not looking forward to this transition. Mars being fallen in Cancer and just
hmm
having to react differently or get serious about things that, it doesn't usually have to fight. And I do think in Cancer is a lot about protection of yourself and what you value and kind of returning to those things of, battles coming up or wanting to protect things or, acting on emotions a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Maddie mentioned, Mars fallen in Cancer. That's important because, Mars doesn't want to be very emotional. It wants to be more like directional and it wants to be like quick and fast paced. And emotions kind of like clog up the process. Like it's making it be like, I can't make those decisions as fast as I would want to because I'm feeling like emotional about it. Or it can also like manifest like I'm too emotional and I've made a decision, you know, based on those emotions instead of like looked at things practically. So yeah, it's just really important to know that Mars will be here in Cancer because it can help you like understand like, okay, I'm going to maybe want to make decisions based off emotions now. Maybe I can like slow down a little bit or like think about what I'm doing before I do it. So I think that will really be helpful. Mars is going to be in Cancer for quite a while. We're going to be experiencing that until I think February 23rd is when it stations direct.
If
But
it's not gonna leave Cancer until like
no.
April.
Yeah, it's going to be there for like a long time. So like the first significant half of the year you're going to be spending with Mars in Cancer here. Yeah, it doesn't come back into Leo until April 18th. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so much time for a fallen
Hmm.
Mars. And you really want to look at the houses that Mars rules for you
Yeah.
too. No, you want to look at the Cancer house for sure, but also look at Aries and Scorpio because both of those houses are going to be brought up or like brought to light with this transit. And I think one of the good things to keep in mind is like my motto, at least for Cancer or Mars returning to Cancer in retrograde, is like, let's wait 2 days because like it's ruled by the moon and the moon changes signs every 2 days. So
Oh,
like
that's a good point. Yeah.
you wait 2 days and you're gonna feel
Hmm.
so different about this issue than you felt 2 days before.
Hmm. That's so true though. But yeah, Maddie's so right though. Like tune into the houses that Mars rules because not only is it going to be a review of like where Mars is sitting in your chart, but it's also going to like pull up those two houses. And I think like in larger part, this is speaking also to some of like the Aries transits that we're going to have later in the year. So yeah, it'll just be like something important that you can like note down and pay attention to, like how this period of time goes.
Yeah, for sure. And it is this is like such a big cycle. Like I was not kidding when I was talking about like October being dragged out to the spring. Like
Hmm.
it is this is such a long-term thing that you're experiencing. So it is something to think long term. Like that's another piece of advice. I think sometimes Mars when it's fallen, because I was listening to the astrology podcast, they have a great year ahead podcast out. It's long, but it's really thorough and really worth the listen. But with Mars in that position, it is highly reactive because it's seeking to defend constantly Cancer, protect, the soul, protect the body, protect the home. And when it's so reactive like that, it's not thinking clearly and it's not thinking long term. And like
Hmm.
give it time, like think long term, like project this action out a couple months and see if the consequences are actually what you want to have. Because most of the time you're doing something right in the moment that's important, but isn't what you want to see down the road. So,
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point to make. Yeah. So, tread lightly with your actions at the beginning of the year, especially if you're like a martially dominant person, like if your rising sign is like ruled by Mars, like in Aries or Scorpio, or if like you have angular placements that are ruled by Mars, like you're just gonna want to pay a little bit more attention because these are going to be like, or this placement is going to be like highly affecting you in some way.
yes.
Yeah.
So, and even if you are a cardinal, just that last part to this, if you're a cardinal rising, that's would be so
Yeah.
Capricorn, Libra, Aries. I'm forgetting the last one. Cancer. Duh.
Hmm.
If you're a
I had to
cardinal,
like stop and think. I was like, wait.
wait, we were talking about it. If you're a cardinal rising, that means that just this retrograde is happening in one of your prominent angles, and that is loud. It's just loud in your chart. So
Mm.
that's what we're feeling. That's what we're looking into. I don't know. Side note, can we sidebar real quick?
Mhm.
The Mars Pluto opposition, we're still in the midst of it as we're recording. We're recording this on New Year's Day. So we're still definitely in the midst of it, but I have already been tracking the news stories and they are just gruesome. Have you seen them
All
recently?
I saw is like the Tesla blew up or something, but I didn't
Yeah,
see.
that one was funny, but I mean they
Yeah.
killed someone, so that one too
Not
funny.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah, the Tesla blew up. It had fireworks inside of it, so Mars and Leo. And
Yeah.
then
Oh my goodness.
but the New Orleans, New Year's Eve event in New Orleans, a guy passed a barrier and drove his truck into Bourbon Street and killed like four or more people, 10 people, I think, actually, and injured a lot. And it was like an act of terrorism. He had like an ISIS flag in the back of his truck. And like they're
Really?
thinking that he was working within a larger like terrorist movement in the United States.
That's scary.
Yeah, so already starting to see some this is just really strong Mars Pluto oppositions, which is a little bit different than the Mars Pluto opposition in Cancer that we've had, but I think it speaks to when Mars stationed retrograde in Leo in early December, we've had really serious things happening with like explosions, shootings, killings. Like it's more to unfold, but I just wanted to bring that up. Like that's Mars energy, like you lose it. You're like, I'm doing this now,
Mm.
not
Hmm.
thinking, all actions.
Yeah, yeah, it really can be like that, especially when it comes into connection with Pluto in some way. But yeah, like as Maddie noted, like Mars represents, like cutting and severing, and it can like represent war and battle, and it has these like darker representations to it. So it can kind of rule, those like darker actions that we might take. So it is important to be like a little bit, yeah, a little bit more mindful. Yeah, and just like be aware. Yeah, just be aware. I think Mars and Cancer though, like if there were to be any like big actions, like you said, it would be out of like a need to protect something. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think these things that we're seeing is definitely the Plutonian element to like
Right.
acting on Mars. Like this is the loudest Mars period that you're getting just because of Pluto opposition. So it's going to be more subtle than that, but it's astrology and work kind of thing.
Mm-mm.
So
Interesting.
that, yeah, but we'll move on now. So, but also on this Monday, January 6th, Mercury is now fully past its shadow period and is squaring Neptune in Pisces.
Hmm.
Nice little bit of confusion. Not only is Mars retrograding back into Cancer, your mind is also just like not thinking clearly.
Right, yeah, and this is interesting, it's like our final little dance with Mercury and Sag, and we just like end it with like confusion, like,
It's so fitting for
yeah.
Mercury and
It
such.
was like, what just happened? Like, no
What
one
was
knows.
that whole like 2 month period? What the
Yeah,
fuck just went down? I don't know.
yeah, I know. Oh my goodness, that's pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, Mercury will be like dancing over into Capricorn like the following day, right?
Yeah, it's
Few
really on
days
tomorrow
after.
on Wednesday, yeah, the
Yeah.
8th. So, oh man, yeah, you definitely pay attention to your mental ability this
Mm.
week when it crosses over like from the square to Neptune and then goes into Capricorn, like big 180 switch there for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a total, like a stark difference. You're going to be like thinking, especially like Mercury and Sag, like maybe you're going to be confused about like the bigger picture and like not really going to know like directionally where you want to go. And then, Mercury moves into Capricorn and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have all these projects I want to work on or all these things I want to do and blah 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 blah. Like in Capricorn, Mercury gets very serious and like organized and yeah, I think is able to discern where it wants to go.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be more like, okay, let's like ground down. Like, let's pause for a moment, ground down. Okay, we gotta get to work, folks. Like, we gotta handle all this. We gotta stop like sprouting new ideas into the world and just get like clear and serious about what needs to get done, get organized. So it is a really like powerful combination. I think it's not even that powerful, but I think it's just gonna feel so much better because Mercury's not in detriment anymore and it's not like struggling.
I know, right? It's kind of like, before like you could picture like Mercury and Sag, it's like it's a bonfire or something, and then that square to Neptune comes and like douses it. Like it's time to put out the
Hmm.
fire and like, calm that down and then goes into Capricorn. It's like, all right, let's like rebuild here.
That's
Like,
such a good point. Because I'm thinking too, like, the Sagittarius ideals are sometimes delusional. And like,
mhm.
it's squaring Neptune can be like, you were totally wrong about
Right,
everything.
right. Yeah. Unfortunately, you're wrong. Yeah.
You were totally missing the whole point. And then
Mhm.
in Capricorn, you're like, okay, my bad. Like, let me get serious about what's like tangible, instead of these
Mhm.
higher ideals that are not tangible or not grounded.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I think it'll like offer some refreshing energy though. Like I think it'll be like a nice break because like Mercury's not in detriment anymore, so we can like just feel like we've gotten a little bit of like life back in the mental sphere.
I agree, but also on
Mhm.
the 8th of Wednesday.
Oh yeah,
Um,
sorry.
right?
Yeah.
The sun is gonna square Chiron, which
Mm-mm.
ouch. This is going to kind of feel a little bit back to the new moon in Capricorn of that week because that new moon week, which was on the 30th on the past Monday, so the 30th of December, around then, that's when Chiron stations direct, and we had some aspects to Chiron with the moon, and now the sun is gonna square Chiron. And again, that's just your womb with your work. With like, I feel like in Capricorn season, we're putting effort into something, we're putting time into something, we're putting our energy into something. And then the Chiron and Aries piece is like, well, it's not giving me results, or I don't feel confident in it, or I'm having all these self-doubts. Like there is this big womb that kind of comes to light. Maybe you're just doubting yourself and doubting your abilities to perform.
Yeah, or I could even think it like manifesting as like it's not moving fast enough, you know? Like, Sun in Capricorn ruled by Saturn, it's going to be the test of time. Chiron and Aries, you want it to be like an immediate thing, and it's just not like panning out as fast as you would want it to be, especially with like Chiron re being ruled by that Mars retrograde in Cancer. I think it's like, that it's also like slow, a lot like really slow. And yeah, I think it might be that honestly, like this slow growth that like a lot of people um aren't wanting to like really go through, Nope. Everybody, we all like things like, especially with Pluto and Aquarius right now, like, this digital age where everything is like fast, fast, fast all the time. Like, having things move slower is kind of seems like almost counterintuitive at times. Like, oh, I thought I could do this like in the blink of an eye, like everything else happens.
I agree. And I mean, I think part of that, like super fast movement, is partially Jupiter and Gemini too. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
expanding the speed of information, expanding the speed of ideas, expanding the ways that you're processing. And then you're like, I just have to get all these ideas to actualize now. They have to happen. And
Hmm.
it is. It's so the work that behind the ideas is just slow work, steady work. And there is a bit of a wound with that because yes, Aries also likes speed, and now Mars is
Right.
retrograde in Cancer, and like it's
Right.
just
Yeah. Well, we're really gonna have to like this speaks to what's happening later in the year, but we are really gonna have to also confront, that speed, that need for speed, when Saturn enters Aries also. So, we'll all be confronting that in some way.
right. Like Saturn fallen in Aries is like unable or constantly unable to find discipline, constantly unable to be in control, and then like that's the wound with Chiron sometimes in Aries is like not able to like understand this is the long-term sustained effort and not an instantaneous gratification. I can
Right.
have it now thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is. It's a lot of just being able to sit with that uncomfortable feeling. Like I think that's probably a good word for this week. It's just being able to be uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. And I think like, I think like one of the biggest gifts with astrology is that we're able to like normalize that, we all experience similar things. Like we all experience like we want to get things done or we want to improve or whatever, and we all hit roadblocks sometimes. And, sometimes like things just suck and like transits are hard and, but we all experience it to some degree. So I think like astrology is great with like normalizing the human experience in some way.
Of course, like and keep it in mind, like people are not going to experience the same exact experience of you because they're
Right.
happening in different areas of your life. But you can
Right.
be able to be like, hey, I get that like work is really hard for you. I feel like, and then I understand the relationships are really hard for you. Like you're having the same feeling just in different areas, but be able to relate to that in some way. Like we are all experiencing this sun square Chiron, you know?
Right. Yeah, like
Just
maybe I can't relate to your exact situation, but I can relate to like the energy behind it. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
just having that empathy for people, like if you get angry with somebody, like what they're going through just may be very different, but it's the same energy that you're experiencing at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then we'll wrap up this week, I think, is the North Node enters Pisces on Saturday, January 11th.
Yay. This will be nice, I think. Like this is like a pretty big shift. Like we don't have an eclipse until what is it, April?
No, it's March. Both the eclipses are
March?
March.
Yeah.
Um, we'll have our first one in Virgo, and then we'll have one in Aries. We actually don't get an eclipse in Pisces until the fall, I think.
Okay.
Uh, my issue with the North Node entering Pisces is that it's going to be immediately conjuncting Neptune because it's moved
I did
backwards.
see that. Yeah. Yeah. I did see that. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit confusion.
A little bit.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
just
okay, for
kidding.
sure.
I'm
A lot of
kidding.
confusion. Yeah. 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 Yeah, well.
Sorry. No, I mean, I think it is yeah, it's gonna be confusion and it's just going to be I think there's gonna be a heightened gravity to your spiritual ideas too, into your spiritual beliefs, that being Neptune, like maybe collectively we see a lot more religious movements. I mean, not to get political, but like with the new president entering in like the United States, like giving more power to church institutions or religious institutions, like I could see that being a shift and that being something that is like a long-term thing when both Neptune and Saturn enter Aries. But like
Mhm.
something coming up with religious beliefs, something coming up with the power that churches have, because I'm just so passionate about it. I work in accounting and I've worked in public accounting. I've done a lot of public accounting for churches, and just the sheer amount of money that they rake in these small southern little tiny churches in bumfuck Florida, rake in millions of dollars and pay zero in taxes, but benefit off of all our institutions, benefit from money markets, make tons of money in capital gains and interest, and pay none of it back to the community that they're supposed to support.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah.
Sorry, a little tangent, but like
Yeah.
things like that, I feel like the North Node could be pulling at like a lot of spiritual issues or things that in Pisces maybe they were more hidden or murky.
Right. Right. Oh, I'm interested to see how that manifests. And that's such an interesting lens you have because not a lot of people who don't
No
work in
one
that world would know
knows.
that. Yeah.
No, and you're not
Yeah.
supposed to talk about it, but I do because I think we should talk about that.
Well, and you have Pisces in the eighth, so you're gonna know about like the religious money situation. Yeah.
Right? But it's just this big thing, and there's plenty of different ways that this can manifest, but I do think there's going to be a lot of like your beliefs get heightened and you're going to want to get clear on what you believe, but there may be a lot of confusion around what you believe too, because different pieces of information are coming to light. It will be, this will play out over a year and a half with the nodes here. So it's
Yeah.
not something that's going to be great this week, but I do think there's a lot of shift to water this week and earth energy this week. Did you notice that?
This week is a lot of shift to water energy.
Water and earth.
Well, yeah, I mean, let me see here. Yeah, we do. But that's good though because we didn't have a lot of Earth for like a long time. But yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
have the Mars moving back in Cancer, North Node moving into Pisces, Mercury moving into Cap. Yeah, we got some water and Earth stuff going on here. Interesting. That'll be like a nice energetic shift or just in general like feeling a shift in how things have been.
Yeah, I think things will go slower. And I also think things will be more emotional. I
Right.
mean, just the North Node entering Pisces alone is like really shifting onto your emotions a lot. and how you're feeling about this collective existence that you're part of.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if we're all going to be, tapping into that collective a little bit more and, tapping into our intuition a little bit more because, like, Pisces is kind of like, it's like a psychic sign, you're like feeling and the unseen. So, with the North Node there, I think we're all going to become a little bit more sensitive, which is good too. The North Node and Neptune too. There might be some, discussions with like water and water laws and stuff like that, especially when Neptune moves over into Aries.
That's
Uh,
such a good point. I've heard
yeah.
that they were like, like our water or oceans are like the last things that are not fully privatized, but
No, they're not.
I've heard that that could be like a big thing with Neptune.
Yeah, because it's really interesting though. I mean, we have all these like um what do you call that? Like we own land, we have all these like landowners and stuff like this, but when it comes to water, it's hard to be like, this is the boundary between what I own and what you own, which is very, water, like it's boundaryless.
Right. It's boundaryless. It's meant to
Yeah.
be boundaryless, but now we're suddenly trying to contain it. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it would be really interesting. But personally, you just want to look at the Pisces Virgo because also the South Node's entering Virgo. That's the other half of this. So
Yes, it
there
is.
you're going to be experiencing more release and more letting go and more potential clearing away. So you want to pay attention to what houses those are in your personal chart because that's going to be a big theme for the next year and a half.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll get like the first taste of it within within this week. Um, yeah, but it'll be really interesting. But yeah, like Maddie said, it's a longer term thing. It's a year and a half. So you have the next year and a half to get really acquainted with this and what it means to you. Reflecting on on your last nodes, like where the North Node was and where the South Node was, in your chart can just like clue you in to like how do the nodes feel in general. So I think that can be like a good reflection point if you want to go look like if you had the North Node in the 10th and the South Node in the 4th, like, oh, what happened in my 10th house and what happened like in the career world and then what happened in my home life. That would be like good. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So just definitely that would be the more personal reflection for you, but that actually wraps us up for this week. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Nope, that's all for this week.
Great. Well, if you want more content from us, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Two Girls Talk Transits. Sign up for our program. The link will be below. Everything else is linked below, and we will see y'all next week.
See you.
Mhm.